Hey everyone, Pete here again. I'm going to do another tutorial video. Today we're going to talk about the UI section here in the node graph. So let's come in here and let's talk about it. So we got UI. We're skipping nav markers today. I haven't really explored those quite yet, and I don't want to give you wrong information. But so we've got a decent list here. First off, you'll notice that most of these are printing to the kill feed. So print Boolean, print number, print player, print team, print vector3. Um, so we'll talk about those ones first, but then we also have UI messages, clearing the splash, pushing the splash, and objective banner. First, before we get too far into it, I do want to say objective banner, you can only test it in customs. So it's really cool to implement. Essentially a banner down here at the bottom of your screen when you're playing, and it kind of stays up until it changes. Um, it's awesome for certain game types. However, it's a little bit tedious to get running properly. The other thing I'll say before I forget to say it is I think that there's a bug going on with the objective banner where if you try and push it to the player too early in the match, like within the first 30 seconds or so, it kind of breaks it, and it's kind of hard to determine when you can actually get it to work again later in the match. Some of the game types I've played or I've done, it would come up later, but it was kind of sporadic. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to do objective banners, probably give it a buffer room. That said, a lot of the time, from game start, all your intro cameras, everything, till the player actually gets a hold of their character, a lot of the time that's roughly about 20 seconds. So it's not terribly bad if you kind of give it that extra time, and then you have it pop up a little later once the match starts. So, but let's talk first about the print to kill feed. So the intention of these is mainly for debugging purposes in your scripts. Um, so it's super handy if you're trying to debug. You just, unpin something, plug this in the middle, and then plug in what you're trying to have output so you can see when it's happening. So actually what I want to do, let me bring in a prefab so we don't have to start from scratch here. Um, oh, which one should we do? Some of these are ones I was just testing out, but let's do this motion sensor door. This will work pretty good. So I'm going to just ungroup this so we don't run into any issues. So is this our blank brain that we just used? Yeah, let's get rid of that. All right, so we've got this brain that is controlling our door. And there's not terribly too much going on here. I've gone over this before in other videos, but I want to come in here and let's do a couple things. So first thing is we have our function. So basically you walk into the area monitor and it triggers to run one of these functions: door open when you walk in, door close when you go out. So let's see where we could add some different UI stuff. Let's say we were having trouble and the door wasn't opening. Um, we could we could say, okay, we have all this going on when the area monitor is triggered. We want door open to open here. Well, what if we don't know if it's actually making it into the event here? And so let's say we wanted to just add something that told us, hey, we made it this far. So you could print a number like maybe number one if you made it so far, number two if you made it further, number three you could print true or false. You could print a player if you're trying to figure out, the player. Let's do a number. We'll just print the number 1. Okay. So these are cool because you can plug in a number that you're working with, or you can just type it into this directly. So I can just say number 1, print number to kill feed. Okay. So why is it not starting? There we go. So now when I walk up near this door, which looks kind of janky for some reason, hopefully it works right. Okay, so it's printing 1 every time we make it to the door opening, which sometimes you got to be careful not to spam your debugs over in the kill feed, because if you get too many of them, it's hard to keep track of what's actually happening. What would probably be better is if we took one of these doors and put it over here by itself, just to give you a better visual. So if I walk into its area, number 1, that means it ran the function. Nothing happens when I walk out. I mean, obviously it's working right, but we could do the same thing over here. And let's say instead of, oh, you know what? Let's do this. Okay, so one of the first things happening is we're setting is occupied to false. So let's say we wanted to know what is occupied is holding within that variable at this point. So I could do print Boolean because it's a Boolean type variable. And for the sake of time, I already have it where I'm getting that variable over here. So I'm just going to do an ugly spaghetti connection. But now at this point, when the door is going to close, it's going to set is occupied to false. And then it's going to tell us what it is. So we shouldn't see it be true because we just set it to false. If it came out true, we would have some problems to deal with, because that would probably be a bug. But so we walk in, it's going to give us the 1 again. We walk out, it tells us false. So this is a great way to track down issues going on in your scripts, without having to rebuild everything, even because you can just unpin it, plug it in between, and as soon as you're done, just delete it, pin it back the way you had it, and you're good to go. All right, so that's kind of the idea with the Booleans. There is also vector 3 one, which I'll show you here. We have a translate object to point, so that's moving the door upward. Okay, well, if we want to see the vector 3, which again is 3 numbers in a row, representing the x, y, z coordinates, which we have this vector here. So let's say we were trying to troubleshoot. Maybe we felt like our addition wasn't quite right or something like that. We could say, okay, we want to know what that vector is after the addition occurs. And it maybe we're getting an incorrect start position or something like that, we're adding 11 to it to go upward. Let's see what it actually comes out to after that addition, because there's not really any other way to know that. So watch that kill feed here. It ran twice for us. Maybe I stepped into it too slowly, but yeah. So it's taking us to 81, whatever that was, 81 negative 64 516. So you can use that. There's a couple of reasons you could use that. Obviously debugging, but also let's say you wanted to know an exact coordinate. You can pull that out. So pretty cool, the different debugging options. I'm going to, let's build another script over here for the other stuff we want to look at today. And let's go to scripting, script brain. Okay, so we got a brand new script brain. So this one, let's build our own just for testing. So especially when you're testing something, I always like to use either on player mark or on player crouch. Just keep in mind, crouch works both ways. So when you crouch down or crouch up, it'll run. But let's use the on player mark to get us started here. Let's we're gonna look for a second at the actual templates. So in order to push a splash to the player or to set the objective banner, which are the other two types of messages we can do, you have to use one of these templates. So there's two types. You have just the regular one and then message B. So let's build one of each real quick just to kind of show you the differences. What you'll find is on message B is the template itself is tailored more along the lines of numbers. Um, so like in this case, you have a string, which we'll get to, but the string's in this section right here, and it's going to be a word that is from a pre-made list. We're extremely limited on the strings we can use, so you have to get kind of creative. If any of you saw the map that Karmaplex and I built called Sanctum, we ended up calling the relic in the middle, or sorry, the curse that you get from the relic in the middle, Death's Touch, and then we called the weapon you get when you come back to life after jumping down the flag hole, Death's Treasure. Why did we name it that? Because it was the most applicable thing we could find on the list. So keep that in mind. But yeah, this is tailored around numbers for the most part. So you know how you read these, you'd have a string, which would be your first entry, and then it's going to show X with a slash and then Y. So this is where you'd put your numbers in for X and Y. This isn't necessarily X and Y coordinates. It's just to kind of distinguish between the two numbers that you can plug in. Um, and then in our strings, so this list is the same across any of the string entries on both UI messages. And you just have words that 343 kind of put together, cultivated. As much as this list is extremely long, there's so many words that are just lacking, which I'm hoping that we can get some things added in the future. Um, some more action oriented ones, but like let's just let's say you need to give someone a message like they explored caves. Okay, so you could do a template of X out of Y caves remain. Okay, and then we'll just say one. Like normally you would probably pipe a number into this so that it's dynamic and can fit. um, let's say you have an area monitor that when you explore a cave, you go into the area monitor and it checks a box. So you then have a number variable that increments to how many you have out of the total. So you could do something like that. Um, I'm going to just plug numbers in so you can see it when we use it here. But let's just we'll come back to this other UI message here in a minute. But this message in of itself doesn't do anything. We have to plug it into the push splash to player. So this takes an input of a player. So keep in mind with messages, they're intended, each time you use these nodes, they're intended for a single player. Okay. You're pushing that. If you want to push the same message to multiple players, you need to get that list of players, plug it into like a or like a for each player loop, and then you would push it all, back to back at the same time. But if you're trying to do one message for everyone, it's going to only go to the single player that you plug in at that moment. Duration in seconds is how long it shows on your screen. So it defaults to 2.5. I normally feel like 4 is a pretty good one where it stays up long enough for you to read it and then it goes away. But I'm going to put it at 6 for this purpose, just so you can get a good idea of what it looks like. And then this message, you can't enter it yourself. You have to grab it from one of these templates. So we'll plug in the one we filled out already, and we should have when a player marks, which it's going to be me marking, it's going to push for 6 seconds this message onto my screen. So it should say 1 out of 2 caves. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. Oh, we got an error. Let's take a look at that. Create UI message. I think it's because we have this empty one sitting there. Yep, that looks like it worked. So let's go ahead and mark and notice the banner at the top of the screen. There is 1 out of 2 caves remain. So let's take a look at this other template. Again, the message B is tailored closer to numbers. So if you wanted to just say 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 2 caves, you know, 1 until caves 2 is what it would read if we chose that one. 1.2, you know, there's all these options and it's somewhat flexible. I mean, it's when you want to create entirely custom stuff, it's pretty lacking, but within the bounds of the game and Forge in general, it's somewhat flexible. Okay, so create UI message 1. This is one that often uh, I think people use a little more often, but let's do the one that's everyone's favorite. So URA and then string number 1. So this only uses one string, but we'll go down the list to find. Oh man, I just reset the list. Here it is. Did I pass it? Oh, there it is. Loser. Okay. So we'll test this one just for fun here. And switching these out, all I had to do is switch the message. Everything else is the same. So if we run it, and it gives me the message that I'm a loser. And let's do one with multiple strings here. So player is the loser, okay? So this is interesting because we notice we have this player option down here. When it says player, it's not who the message is going to, it's who would be used in the message if you use part of the template that has the player. So if I put myself, we should now see that the message will say VidGames Pete is the loser. So pretty cool there. Let's see here. Doing the objective banner is basically the same thing. But instead of using push splash, okay, so let's. Okay, and actually I want to mention here, there's clear splash for players. So let's say we had something where we wanted to clear it before that 6 seconds was up. So let's say a completely separate function going on in our script, and I died during the time that banner was up. And so when it runs on my death, we want it to clear any banners that are there. That's why you'd use clear splash for player. You just plug in the player and it just automatically clears whatever their splash is. I'm not going to go into that because I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Set objective banner for player. One thing I want to call out on this as well is you're setting the banner to true or false. So it basically just stays up until something changes. So if we leave the same message and we want to send it to me and we want to enable the message to, if we set it to true, or it didn't save, I hit the wrong button. Okay, so we've got it to true. What we could also do is, just for testing purposes, let's grab in our logic category. If we want to turn it off after, we'll just say 5 seconds. We could do the same thing. We got to plug in our player, which is way over here. And we're going to set enabled to false. So that basically clears the objective message. And you don't actually need a message in here if you set it to false because it's clearing it. Now, in order to test this, and I appreciate you all bearing with me, we're going to save our map. We're going to leave Forge. and we're gonna have to load it up in customs. But it should be when we press the mark button that we get that objective banner. The other thing we just probably want to be careful of is not to try and do it too early when after the game loads, because there's that weird bug that goes on for the roughly 30-second time frame. Hopefully this loads pretty quick for us. So outside of showing this part in our test, there's really not much more to the messages. It's pretty easy to use. I think the worst part is going through the long lists and trying to figure out, what options you want to use in the strings, because they're kind of limited, and trying to say what you want to say is kind of limited. One thing, however, that I kind of looked into is with the objective banner. Let's go ahead and test it. There we go. VidGames Pete is the loser down there at the bottom of the screen. Now this, I did figure out you can update every like second or so. So I used a on or every n seconds node, and had it setting that banner every second in a countdown. So if you played that Sanctum map where it says wait and it's 60, 59, 58, so on, it's counting down. It's actually updating every second to give you that countdown, which I thought was pretty cool. You can use it in that way. I also had an idea, I haven't really tested it much yet, but having more than one message, having it alternate like every couple seconds. So you could have it say, you are the loser, and then wait like a couple seconds, update it again, you are the winner, or whatever you want to say. So that's pretty cool. Just for the sake of time, I know this has gone fairly long already. I'm not going to do more testing, but I'll let you all, get some hands on yourself, test it, make something out of it. It's a great way to spice up, especially your game modes or anything where you have a game type that you're trying to give the player a message. So thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this. As always, anyone that's struggling with scripting, feel free to point them to my videos. Subscribe, because I'm going to just keep putting these out until I run out of stuff to talk about. And thanks again for all the support, everyone. Hope you all take care.